Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's town hall for the ACLU. I'm AJ Hikes. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Strategy and Culture at the ACLU. I'm going to be moderating today's discussion. Let me start by saying that I am so grateful to be in space with you all, this resilient, strong ACLU community, especially right now when we need each other so much. I want to be very clear at the top of this. As you all know, the ACLU does not endorse or oppose any candidates, but we are also very clear-eyed that President-elect Trump presents a clear and present danger for our most fundamental freedoms. The stakes are very real for us and for our families and our country, and we know that you all feel that too. We are only 8 days out from the election, and if you are anything like me, you have felt the full human range of emotions, fear and anxiety and grief and deep concern for our families and friends and communities. And many of us are also feeling a desire to show up, to learn more, and to do something. Whatever you are feeling, you are in the right place, my friends. And I know that you have family and community who are feeling the same things and who need to get this information. So I'm invite you to send them an email, send them a text, give them a phone call, and tell them to join us right now because we've got a lot of work to do. I know many of us are feeling down, but I want to remind you that we are not out. We may be bruised, but we are not beaten. Over the last week, the ACLU has been fielding so many questions from you all about what comes next, what's even possible, and if the ACLU is prepared. Now, y'all know better than that last question because, as I always say, we don't have to get ready. We stay ready at the ACLU, and we are here to tell you that we have a plan. So today you're going to hear from some ACLU leadership. You'll hear from our National Executive Director, our Legal Director, and our Political and Advocacy Director, and our Organizing Director about the threats that we're facing, the plans that we have already set in motion to confront these threats, because let me be very clear, we are already working. We're going to talk to you about some ballot initiative wins that offer some bright spots in the states because we need you to know the good news that we have on the horizon. And you're also going to get a special message from our National Organizing Director on how you can take action because we need you to stick with us in this fight. There is so much to cover today, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We are going to start with a very special guest who is joining the town hall to make sure he can speak directly to our ACLUers. I would like to first bring in our ACLU National Executive Director, the Anthony Romero, my friend, my boss. Welcome, Anthony. So glad you're here to join us for the town hall.
It's great to be here with you, AJ. Thanks.
Now, I want to start us with something that everyone was talking about this weekend. I got texts, emails, everything I could about that New York Times. You see, you already know
I
about
knew
the
you
New
were
York
going
Times
there.
ad.
My phone's been off the hook too.
I bet still, right?
Still.
I have it right here with me. So I want to read a portion of it. And I hope y'all were able to see this full page New York Times ad. If you didn't get to see it, here is just a portion of it. Dear President-elect Trump, in case you had any doubt, we are the American Civil Liberties Union, and we're not moving to Canada. Anthony, I'm not done. So rest assured that when you target immigrants, dissidents, and your political opponents, we will challenge you in the courts, at state legislatures, and in the streets. As the kids say, Anthony, bars. You got bars. You did that. Thank you for it. I know you sat down, you wrote out what so many of us were feeling and needed to hear. You supercharged folks around the country. Tell me, just give some voice to why you decided to communicate in this way so quickly after the election.
So I appreciate the kind words. So look, I felt it was important for me to be in touch with the ACLU family, with the broader constituents of people who look to us. And I don't lose sleep over Donald Trump. I really don't. I sleep like a baby. Where I lose sleep is when I think about fatalism and complacency and cynicism. And if there's one thing I've been doing when I've been picking up the phone and answering them all is to make sure that people vent and feel their feelings and talk about what they're afraid of because they're real. Those are not folks who are overreacting. But then we've got to pivot quickly. We've got to talk about what this is all about and get people to feel the fact that this is worth fighting for, right? The complacency will kill us. And so I say, is it worth fighting for to talk about living life with dignity and living life with freedom and with justice? Is it worth fighting for to Think about the future of this country that you want to hand off to the next generations in a way that we really want to live up to those aspirations, and really get them to start pivoting off of the kind of the fear and the sadness and the anxiety. And the ACLU, we're here to help get that work done.
That's right.
There are a lot of other groups out there. We're not the only one, and it's going to take a village. And the ACLU is important, but so are many other groups in the ecosystem. But the ACLU is unique in the fact that we have the ability to kind of meet this moment that we've been built for.
Yeah.
If you're going to fight power, you've got to work powerfully. And we've spent the last 105 years scaling this organization to meet this moment. We have staff in every state. We have a political arm. We have a litigation arm. We have a multi-issue agenda. We can pivot quickly. When he targets immigrants, we will be there. When he tries to shut down abortion services at the national level, we will be there. When he fear-mongers on the backs of trans kids, we will be there. And the most important thing is that we can't do this ourselves. You know, lawyers are not going to save us. What's going to save us are the American people, activists, the card-carrying members, those wonderful people, over 1 million of them, who give of their time and energy and money to make sure that we can scale to meet the moment. And so that's why I think it was important for me to be in touch, to let them know what we were thinking.
Yes.
We ain't moving to Canada. We're here. He's got to get past us.
Let him know.
And I'm confident that we'll be up for the task.
Let them know. And I really appreciate those reminders. I really appreciate that you remind us that desperation, resignation, those are just not an option for us. Our freedom is worth fighting for, and we aren't going anywhere. To that point, you have led this organization since 2001. And so you have, which is a long time. I know you know it.
A lot of baptisms by fire.
Over
Burned up all my hair.
Over and over. So you offer us some excellent perspective on what we've seen, what we've been through, and what the path forward can look like. Yeah. So I hear a lot of folks saying this eerily feels like 2016, especially as we think from this organization, what was required of the ACLU. And you remind us in the ad, 434 legal actions, firing on all cylinders. But I would love to know from your perspective, how do you see this moment differently from 2016? And then from some other moments where civil liberties were most under threat? What's different this time around?
It's great. 2024 today feels a lot different than 2016, 8 years ago. 2016 was a real shock to the system. I think for many people, myself included, it came as a complete surprise. You know, we were ready with a plan to fight Trump in 2016. We were ready because we wanted to map out what would happen if he became president. I'm a neurotic type A personality, so I wanted to make sure we had a plan. I spent a bunch of time on it. I spent a lot more time on the Hillary Clinton plan because that's the one I thought that was going to be operational. And so when Trump did win, we were not unprepared. We had a base to start off with. But this time around, in 2024, we knew there was a distinct possibility that President Trump would win the re-election. Some of us even expected him to win. You know, you and I have talked. And it's not that I had a better crystal ball than a lot of other folks. Maybe I had a better crystal ball than a lot of the pollsters who I think are committing professional malpractice at this point. But we wanted to be ready. We wanted to make sure that we had the best indications of what we could do. We heard worrying signs from our affiliates in some of the battleground states. As they were out there knocking door to door, there was some reason to be concerned. And yet we got ready. We had to. And the ACLU's work, in my mind, AJ, is often the most salient and the most resonant in a time of crisis. You know, to be clear, we don't pick our priorities or we don't undertake our strategies or our activities based on how popular they are. We have a North Star, and that North Star never moves. We defend the rights and liberties of all persons in the US, regardless of party, regardless of popularity. Whether we have to lock horns with Republicans or with Democrats, our job is to champion a vision for this country where all rights are respected, where each person can live with dignity, where we can live free from discrimination, fear from government overreach. And that North Star stays right front and center for us throughout.
Let me ask you something, Andy. You just mentioned popularity. One of the things I should have mentioned before when I was talking about you starting your leadership of this organization in 2001 is that it was right after 9/11, right before 9/11. Yeah. Speaking about unpopularity, can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like to lead the organization during that time, and what are some of the parallels you may see? Some of the things you learned.
Our work was not popular in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. I remember arguments with an NPR reporter who said, "What, are you crazy? Why are you pushing the civil liberties angle at this time? We need to be safe." I remember going on the Hill and talking to folks about not voting for the USA Patriot Act. And every single one of the senators, except for one, voted for the USA Patriot Act. I remember when there were folks who were really energetic saying, you're wrong to push civil liberties right now. We just got to keep America safe. And so we, over time, like water on stone is a metaphor I like to use, we undertook our advocacy, we brought our lawsuits, we educated the public, we brought people around. And then so much so that that very kind of popular law, the Patriot Act, became radioactive after 3 or 4 years of educating the American people about what was in that bill. And AJ, I reflect on that because I think it's really important for us to reflect on this environment in the following last week's election, to understand that our work, our principles, our commitment to advancing our cause hasn't changed. You know, how we do it, how we adapt to a climate that's evolving around us, how we try to bring people along on that journey has to change. But what we stand for is got to be rock solid. It's got to be real clear.
And it is. You remind me constantly, Anthony, that the strength of this place, the strength of the ACLU, beyond, of course, our 54 affiliates, the boots on the ground in every single state, is our extraordinary ability to adapt, to shift, to meet the distinct needs of the moment and figure out how we need to fight in that context. So let's talk about the work ahead. Let's talk about the how. We had a successful, hugely successful playbook last time around, but I know you and I know this organization. I've been here for a few years, witnessed firsthand how we can pivot and evolve in a moment. I don't want to bury the lead. The question on everyone's mind is, what is the plan? Can you lead us through the ACLU's plan to defend our freedoms in a second Trump presidency?
Yeah, we can't run the same playbook we did in 2016.
Right.
There's no way we could just cut and paste what we did then and do it now. And that's why, because Trump is going to be a different type of president. Exactly. He'll be the same type of divisive leader. Let's be clear. He's going to double down on immigrants, on people of color, on abortion rights. He'll be targeting the least powerful and the least among us. He will be as intolerant of criticism and opposition as he was the first time around. But this time, he's going to be so much more effective, right? They aren't going to make the same rookie mistakes they made in 2016.
Exactly.
It took them 3 bites at the apple to perfect the Muslim ban. He's not going to make that same mistake twice, right? This time around, he's going to be much clearer. He's figured out how to govern. Look at the speed of these senior appointments. You know, Holman as the immigration czar, Stephen Miller as head of domestic policy, Kristen Noem as head of Homeland Security, Susan Wiles as chief of staff, Matt Gaetz apparently for DOJ. We'll have more to say about that later on. We're scrubbing what we know, and we will be issuing statements and really weighing in. But his appointments have been fast and furious. They are so much better prepared this time around. And then the playbook that he's been handed, that Heritage Foundation Project 2025, it is thorough, it is aggressive, it's laid out there in black and white. We know they're going to consult and implement many of the things in that Project 2025 playbook. So he's more effective, he's better prepared, he's picking loyalists to serve around him. He doesn't want debate or dissent. He's going to not allow anyone to demur. He's going to pick folks who are in lockstep. That's what all these nominees show you, people who are going to be in lockstep. He's even flirting with the idea of skipping the confirmation process if he can. And so all of what we had last time around, the mediating forces, the kind of adults in the room, that op-ed in the New York Times about the fabled anonymous advisor who was there to protect us from the worst of Trump's impulses. Well, those folks are not getting in the room.
Right.
And so we've got to be ready. And I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just clear-eyed. I'm not trying to gild the lily. So our plan, 3 parts.
3 parts.
Real quick. Litigation, critical. Creating firewalls for freedom in the states, and ensuring that protest and dissent and debate are alive and well and survive at any cost. Litigation, you'll hear from Cecillia Wang a little later on, I think, in this podcast, in this video, whatever this is. But she will detail for you as our national legal director the ways in which we're thinking about deploying our lawyers, our litigation. The conventional wisdom among liberals and progressives, which I am making sure I answer every time, that the courts are lost to us, is not just defeatist, it's also wrong.
Right.
We can win. Most of our cases don't go to the Supreme Court. Good lawyers find ways of picking clients and crafting legal theories to convince skeptical judges, even at the Supreme Court. I don't bet against us, I bet with us. Not all lawyers are created equal. And we've got the best of the bunch out there doing this important work. Second piece, firewall for freedom. You'll hear from Deirdre Schifeling also. We've come up with a 98-page plan that walks through how the states, how the governors, the attorneys general, the mayors can become protagonists and lines of defense against the federal government encroachment. Let's use some state rights arguments. Let's employ our federalist structure as a way to advance rights and liberties. And then third prong, dissent and debate. And that's where the card-carrying members come in. That's where the people on this YouTube call really are essential. There can be no spectators in this game. In this game that determines the future rights and liberties of future generations, we must all hit the field. And our job has to be to ensure that when people do hit the streets, and when people do protest the mass deportations of our neighbors and loved ones, when they protest the revocation of mifepristone in the mail and for abortion services, when they do fight against the efforts around using the Comstock Act or the scapegoating of transgender kids, that people are able to stay in the streets, that they're able to be heard. And so producing Know Your Rights materials, making sure that we bring litigation to make sure that protesters aren't shut down, defending whistleblowers and the protection of Trump critics, all of that to make sure that the lifeblood of American democracy remains loud and vigorous and engaged. And that's right up our strike zone. That's what we've been doing for over 105 years. Defending the rights of protesters, defending the rights of freedom of speech, making sure that we can train legal observers, ensuring that we deploy people as protagonists, marches and sit-ins, observers of the deportation forces, immigrant defenders who will turn out there to stand up for their fellow neighbors. That's what's going to be a key part of what we do.
And that, like you said over and over again, right up our strike zone, that is what we are uniquely positioned to do. So the plan, litigation, create firewalls in the states, and ensure that protest and dissent and debate are able to survive at any cost. Anthony, I wanted to thank you for reminding us that being a part of this ACLU community, especially at this time, it's a gift, it's a calling. We are going to show up and we're going to fight every single day at every single turn with every single tool that is available to us. That is our promise. That is who we are. And as I always say, we ain't new to this. We're true to this. 105 years. We don't do the hand wringing. We don't admire the problem. We just get it done. That's who we are. So Anthony, thank you. I'm going to ask you not to go far because I'm going to come back to you in a bit, but I am going to transition to Cecillia and Deirdre, our legal and political experts. Are my friends here? All right. As they are coming on, wonderful. Cecillia Wang is no stranger to the ACLU, y'all. She has been an ACLU lawyer for more than 2 decades, and I am very proud to say that she became the organization's national legal director in September. Cecillia, I just always get thrilled being able to say that title in full. And in this role, she does oversee over 200 lawyers and staff at the National Legal Department, supports our legal staff across our 54 affiliate network, and directs the ACLU's work in the Supreme Court. And I also want to welcome Deirdre Schifeling, our Chief Political and Advocacy Officer, who brings her extraordinary political, organizing, coalition building background to the ACLU. Under Deirdre's leadership, the ACLU committed, and y'all need to hear this, over $25 million to critical down-ticket ballot measures and candidate races this election cycle, helping to restore abortion rights in states like Missouri and Arizona. I am so happy to have you experts here with me. Cecillia, I'm going to talk to you first about litigation. I know that your legal team is always pushing forward no matter what the challenge, but I do want to get right to the hard question. Anthony just started talking about it, but I want you to spend a little bit more time here because I want to lift up what I hear every day from folks. Folks are lamenting all over social media, all over everyone else. There's no path in the courts, is what they say. All hope is lost for our most fundamental rights. If we have to rely on the courts, we're cooked. That's what they say, Cecillia. But you and your superhero colleagues, our litigators at the ACLU, say, not so fast. That's not true. So we are fielding a lot of questions about our faith in the courts to stop and stall the worst abuses that may be coming from the Trump administration. Please tell me, is litigation still an effective tool?
AJ, you will not be surprised to hear me say that litigation remains a vital tool a vital weapon, I would say, in our arsenal for the fights ahead against the Trump administration and against state officials who are going to be going after our communities. And that's true in both federal and state courts. So what I would say is, number one, I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. There is no question that the Supreme Court of the United States has moved from a 5-4 hostile majority to a 6-3 hostile majority. But my friends, please take heart and do not count out the power of litigation. I'm from California, and what I always say is, if you've got a summer of wildfires and homes are threatened and wildlife habitat is threatened, you can sit around and talk about all the conditions over many years that have led to this situation. But the first thing you need to do is put out the fire so it does not burn your house down. And that's the nature of litigation as a tool. As Anthony said, the lawyers are not going to save us, but the lawyers are going to knock ourselves out trying, and we'll combine litigation with other tools. So why do I say take heart? Let me give you a few reasons. Let's look first at the federal courts. First, let's look at the lower federal courts. And here the message is, do not count out Joe Biden, okay? Donald Trump got confirmed to the federal bench about 246 Article 3 judges, district judges, Court of Appeals judges. Biden so far has gotten about 212 through, which means that if the pending nominations actually are confirmed, he will be on par with Trump by the end of his presidency in terms of the number of federal judges who he gets through to the federal bench. Second, don't count out Republican appointed federal judges. They have a sworn duty, too, to apply and interpret the Constitution and the laws written by Congress in ways that protect our civil rights and civil liberties. Do not forget that Trump appointed federal judges ruled for us in our ACLU litigation against the Trump administration's immigration policies. And I want to focus on the Supreme Court of the United States, because I think that's what people are thinking about when they have this pessimistic feeling that the courts are all locked up by our opponents. There's no question that this Supreme Court is hostile to many of our communities and the values that we hold dear. We went from a 5-4 hostile majority to a 6-3 hostile majority over the course of my career as a civil rights lawyer. And to be clear, SCOTUS has inflicted great harms and no doubt will continue to reach terrible decisions like Dobbs. But don't forget, the Supreme Court's docket is limited. For many years now, they have taken only about 60 cases out of the tens of thousands of cases that are filed in federal courts every year. Also, don't forget, we are still winning. My predecessor, David Cole, wrote in July about this past Supreme Court term that we won in more than half of the cases in which the ACLU represented a party or filed a friend of the court brief. The court has ruled for us. Our win-loss record before this 6-3 court is 38 wins and 30 losses. So we're winning more than half the cases. Not a bad batting average. Last term, we were involved in 6 free speech cases. We won all of them. And let me give you a key example for the folks who are saying, okay, maybe on free speech, the court is with us, but what about everything else? 2 terms ago, we won our Alabama congressional redistricting case, Milligan, before this 6-3 court. And as a result, the state of Alabama is sending 2 Black representatives to the House of Representatives for the first time in US history. That's because of our litigation and the Supreme Court win. Let's talk about state courts. So don't give up on the federal courts. State courts, this picture is even more interesting. We have pioneered a state Supreme Court initiative where we're using state court litigation to pursue state constitutional claims. That is a potent tool as a firewall against what the federal courts, and particularly the Supreme Court of the US, can do. We can use state courts to try to build that firewall so that states that don't want to participate in immigration enforcement, that don't want to participate in abortion restriction enforcement, can put up a firewall and say, our state doesn't do that. And we can do that through state court litigation. So those are just a couple of the examples of what we can do in state courts. In short, litigation remains a critical tool, and it's the first line of defense whenever the president or a governor or Congress does something that hurts our civil rights and civil liberties.
Thank you so much, Cecillia. Now that was clear. That makes so much sense to me. And I also want to thank you and our colleagues for being the firefighters, putting out the fire over and over and over again. What I took away from this is let's be careful about the overemphasis on the Supreme Court of the United States. 60 cases they take up out of tens of thousands. That is incredibly important. That is a very small number. So let's not overemphasize. And let's remember that we win. We have a winning record still, even with a hostile court. And let's also remember that our wins have very real impacts. Thank you for uplifting those Black representatives we have coming out of Alabama. So what I'm hearing is that litigation is still a very effective tool, and we have to keep that at the forefront. And yet still, Cecillia, there is no denying that we have a huge fight ahead of us across a range of issues that we work on: voting rights, immigrants' rights, LGBTQ equality, reproductive freedom, women's rights, criminal law reform, racial justice, the First Amendment. You name it, we've got challenges on that front, but we also have Trump memos on each and every one of these issues. So you told us that litigation is still a tool, is still a weapon. Can you lift up some of the concrete, specific examples where we know that it will be a powerful weapon for us moving forward?
Let me give you 2 examples, AJ. The first one I'll start with shows how we're thinking about litigation as a tool alongside advocacy of various other kinds. On abortion rights, we are now carrying out a strategy that combines ballot campaigns, which Deirdre is going to talk about, with litigation. In Missouri, the day after this election, we filed a lawsuit to challenge existing abortion bans and a multitude of other restrictions that prevent people from getting care. This is to follow up on the incredible ballot initiative work that we did. So the plan here is use advocacy to go and let the people speak, that they want abortion care to be available and for access to be free. And then the litigators will go in afterwards and strike down those existing state laws that are contrary to the new law passed by the people. We've got a similar litigation going on in Arizona, where we're about to challenge a 15-week abortion ban after the election results are certified and Arizona's abortion care restoration ballot initiative goes into effect. In Kentucky, 2 years ago, thanks to advocacy, Kentucky voters rejected a ballot measure that would have prohibited abortions. 2 days ago, we filed a lawsuit in state court in Kentucky as the next step, again in this strategy, to strike down existing statutory bans on abortion care, suing under state constitutional rights to privacy and self-determination. Let me turn to immigration, because that's on many people's minds as Trump campaigned on a promise to go after immigrants again. This example is from the first Trump presidency. We litigated against the Muslim ban. And as Anthony said, Trump had to water down his executive orders 2 times in response to our winning litigation, where courts struck down the first 2 versions. We brought a total of 28 lawsuits, with one of them, International Refugee Assistance Project, against Trump emerging as one of the 2 major cases that were headed toward the Supreme Court. We also successfully litigated against Trump's illegal transfer of military construction funds to build border wall segments that Congress had refused to fund. We also sued successfully to stop the horrific family separation policy. We also sued when Trump wanted to add a citizenship question to the US Census as a way to chill minority participation in the census. We won in the federal courts on all of those cases. And I want to say one thing to back up what I just started with, that litigation remains a powerful tool. A lot of people will say, you lost at the end of the day, right? When the state of Hawaii's case on the Muslim ban got up to the Supreme Court upheld that 3rd version of the Muslim ban. But don't forget, it changed a lot and was watered down a lot over the course of those 3 versions. And in the 515 days between the night that President Trump issued the first Muslim ban, January 27th, 2017, and the time that the Supreme Court upheld the 3rd version in Trump versus Hawaii, our litigation made it possible for countless people, but certainly thousands and thousands of people, to use their validly issued visas to start a new life in the US, or to temporarily visit the US as a scholar, as a business person, to get to the deathbed of a loved one, or to celebrate the birth of a new baby in their family. Those things were accomplished through litigation. And we'll do all the same things and more to challenge Trump this time around. We are expecting him to be far worse on immigration instead of focusing just on people who are trying to come to the US. Trump has said that he's going to launch the largest domestic deportation machine in the history of the United States. So we're going to see due process violations. We'll see mass detentions. We'll see door-to-door home raids in American communities around the country. We'll see mass worksite raids because Donald Trump wants to make a splash while hurting people. And we're going to respond in 3 ways. Our national ACLU lawyers and the Immigrants' Rights Project will file impact litigation to challenge those policies writ large. Second, we have our Firewall for Freedom work in the states and localities around the country, where we will join forces with local communities and state and local officials, as Deirdre will explain in more detail, in order to protect immigrant communities and mixed status families. And finally, do not forget, the ACLU has boots on the ground in all 50 states. And we have the power of ACLU state affiliates, lawyers, and advocates who can bring to bear location-specific strategies to say, no, Donald Trump, we don't want a detention camp in our community. We don't want to take part in your mass deportation machine. And so look for both litigation, advocacy, and an uprising of people who are going to reject Trump's policies on that local level.
Yes, Cecillia, I'm trying to synthesize all of this that you just shared with us, and it's just so much information. It's so rich. What I want folks to pull out of this is that, first of all, remember that we win even in hostile courts, family separation, the census question, and we're coming with a multi-pronged strategy. That 1-2 punch of advocacy and litigation that you described there, Cecillia, is just brilliant, and it's something that we can uniquely come with. And no matter what comes, even the worst of it that we're anticipating on the front of immigration, the door-to-door raids, the workplace raids, we have impact litigation. We have a firewall plan that's on the ground that will protect our people. We also have our affiliates, our supporters, all of you to fight back. So thank you so much, Cecillia. I'm going to invite Deirdre back because now we are talking about organizing. And Deirdre, as an organizer, I know organizers, and one thing I know for sure is that organizers take that long range, long-term view, and we never give up. We always remember that hope is a discipline and a strategy. And so we got some strategies we're going to talk about, but I would love for you to start with some of the hope that we have. What are some of the massive down ticket wins that we saw on election night that are going to be huge for us moving forward?
Yes, thank you so much. We did have some amazing wins on election day, despite the top of the ticket. First, the ACLU National, in partnership with our incredible state affiliates and coalition partners on the ground, worked in 8 out of 10 reproductive rights ballot initiatives across the country, a historic number. And we won 7 of them. So if there was ever any doubt that voters across partisanship, across geography, across race, age, gender, support reproductive rights, there should not be any doubt now. We won ballot initiative campaigns in red states like Missouri and Montana, in purple states like Arizona and Nevada, and in blue states like New York and Colorado. All in, ACLU was the biggest organizational contributor to these ballot initiatives in the country. We had our state litigators, as Cecillia mentioned, going to court to beat back right-wing attacks on these ballot initiatives and attempts to throw reproductive rights off the ballot altogether. We had our organizers mobilizing tens of thousands of volunteers to collect signatures to get these ballot initiatives on the ballot. It takes a lot of work. These are citizen-initiated ballot initiatives. It takes months and months of people going door to door, standing in front of grocery stores, passing petitions at churches. It takes a lot of work to get these ballot initiatives on the ballot. And ACLU volunteers were front and center in driving that forward. And then finally, to educate voters and get out the vote before Election Day. And we had our top campaign strategists in states sitting in the leadership of these campaigns to help steer them alongside our coalition partners. And we also raised millions of dollars for voter contact. Bottom line, it was an all hands on deck effort across the ACLU. And at the end of the day, 50 million, I'm going to say that again, because I don't get to say this much, 50 million people woke up on Wednesday with rights that they didn't have on Tuesday night, including in places like Missouri, where I was on the ground with our affiliate and many of our staff and volunteers in the days leading up to Election Day. And I'm going to tell you from my own experience in Missouri, Missouri had a total abortion ban with no exceptions in place. And on Election Day, I was outside a polling place at 6 a.m. Polls open at 6 a.m. Our organizers are hardcore. Polls are open. We're going to be there 6 a.m. It's pouring rain, torrential downpour. And I'm standing out there under my umbrella to talk to voters and make sure they knew to vote yes on our ballot initiative. And I will admit, I was deeply skeptical. I thought there is no way that voters are coming out to vote at 6 a.m. in this torrential downpour. And boy, was I wrong. Not only were voters coming out in droves, but many of them stopped and talked to me and told me their story of why they were voting, their own experiences with not being able to access reproductive health care, their own miscarriage stories, their family members who were turned away at emergency rooms in Missouri and had to drive hours to get the care that they desperately needed in another state. So this was not a theoretical situation to Missouri voters. This was their life. And we feel so proud of our efforts across all states to protect the right to access reproductive health care. And we were also successful in helping to elect pro-civil rights candidates in state Supreme Courts. So Cecillia mentioned the importance of state Supreme Courts in protecting and upholding rights and liberties. Those state Supreme Courts are going to be critical in implementing these ballot initiative wins. And we also did some work in state legislatures, really making sure that voters understood which state legislative candidates are with them on reproductive rights and which are not. So reproductive rights was a winner in down ballot races. And despite Trump in the White House, states still play a critical role in protecting people's rights and guarding against the worst of the Trump administration's overreach.
I'm going to say it again, Deirdre, because I like saying it too. 50 million people woke up with rights they didn't have the night before. These wins are real and they have very real impact in real people's lives. And going in Missouri from a total abortion ban to having access the next day is huge. And as you said, doing it in the rain, sleet, snow, the ACLU is there. We're giving the Postal Service a run for its money. So I appreciate you naming also and reminding us that it's not just about the president or the administration there. There are so many other elected officials up and down the ballot who have a role to play in protecting our communities. So now Cecillia explained to us what some of the litigation opportunities are moving forward, but we know, of course, that's only one piece of the puzzle. We have to rely on our state and city level governments to protect their people. Talk to us about the Firewall for Freedom playbook and what a safe haven at the state and city levels can look like.
Yes. So for the past 6 months, we have been working across the ACLU to build out our Firewall for Freedom, which is, as Anthony mentioned, a 96-page playbook of state laws and executive orders and directives that states can pass to protect the rights and freedoms of the people in their state and really prevent the Trump administration from compelling states to use their power and the information they have on their residents to help the Trump administration carry out their undemocratic and immoral attacks on people's rights. So it covers a whole host of areas, including laws to protect reproductive rights, like SHIELD laws, laws to protect LGBTQ rights, things that you can do at school boards, protecting freedom of speech and privacy, and crucially, immigrant rights. Many of the governors in blue states who our affiliates have been working closely with have already come out strong just over the past week, calling emergency sessions with their legislatures, introducing executive orders, and publicly pledging to protect their constituents' rights. Even today, a new coalition of governors that we help support and we help seed launched publicly, which is called Governors Safeguarding Democracy, to protect our democracy against Trump. So we are seeing the Firewall for Freedom in action and work out in the world. We know that the top item on Trump's agenda, what he ran on, is carrying out a mass deportation of immigrants who are undocumented. So this is where the Firewall for Freedom is crucial. One piece of the Firewall for Freedom, why we named it Firewall, is asking states to pass an executive order or a directive forbidding the state from using its state police force or its National Guard to help the Trump administration in their quest to carry out a mass deportation. The truth is, the Trump administration can't actually deport millions of people without the help of states. And so we have been working for months leading up to this election with governors, attorneys general, and state legislatures to prepare to cut off that help. And it's not just elected officials, regular people like me have an important role to play as well. Remember that it wasn't just lawyers who acted after the Muslim ban during the first Trump administration. It was people flooding airports, people protesting in the streets, calling out injustice, and forcing the media to pay attention and really demonstrating that the American public doesn't support this. So we need all of you. We need all of you with us. We also have a playbook for cities and municipalities. So even in red states where you're not going to be able to pass these executive orders or these state laws, there is still a role for mayors and city councils to play to protect rights and freedoms. And as a reminder, during the first Trump administration, People Power volunteers from the ACLU met with more than 1,000 law enforcement officials, testified at city council meetings, submitted letters to the editor, and all kinds of other activism, which resulted in local governments adopting binding ordinances and resolutions to protect immigrant communities. So we have a track record here. We have a strong history of volunteers engaging in this important work to protect rights for everybody, and we need you.
We really, really do. What I appreciate, what I just kept hearing over and over again, Deirdre, is that we have a plan, not concepts of a plan. We have a plan, a 98-page playbook. And this is the most important part of our democracy. Beyond the courts, beyond the statehouses, we have the streets. Beyond the political power, we have people power. And the power of the people is alive and well. That is where we all come in. Thank you for reminding us that the people stood up and said, not on our watch. And that's exactly what we need again. And I know we have some activists that are listening. I know that's exactly why people showed up to hear this. So let's talk about our grassroots mobilization here, the role that we all play. And I'm defining the we here to include everyone that's watching this town hall and beyond. Some of you might have seen that ad I was talking about in the Times last week where we said, you got to get past us. The us we're talking about is all of us here. And so I'm going to welcome John Gilbert, who is our National Organizing Director, into this space for a reminder that we need to use our voices, our power to fight for our rights. We can't give up. We got to show up. So John, talk to us about what we can do right now, what we can do moving forward, some defense, some offense. Many of us are ready to be put to work right now. We're ready to go, and the ACLU is ready for us. So tell us what we can do today to help out, John.
Thanks so much, AJ. We want to put you to work is the short answer. I think a core tenet of organizing is that when there's a big challenge, you need big community to respond to it. And we see obviously challenges in front of us. Some are national, some are local, some are going to be at the state level, some are going to be all of those combined. And what we basically need to do is to take our already large, thriving, vibrant activist and volunteer community, again, many of whom are on this call, and get bigger and get even more organized and get even more ready for what's to come. So the first thing I want to do is just point out there's a website right above my head on this banner, aclu.org/47. I really want to encourage everyone to go there for a couple of reasons. First, you're going to be able to see the results of a lot of work done mapping out the blueprint for what we see a second Trump presidency bringing in terms of policy level threats in the Trump memos. Second, there are going to be things you can do right now to make your voice heard on things like mass deportations and reproductive rights. But third, the thing I really want to call out is if you scroll down just a little bit on that site, you'll get to a question, you'll get to a prompt, and it says, do you want to be a volunteer? And I just want to encourage everyone on this call to fill it out. If this is your first time engaging with the ACLU, welcome. We're glad you're here. We would love for you to fill out that form. If this is your 35th rodeo with the ACLU, thank you so much for everything you've done. We'd love you to fill out that form because that's how we're going to be able to stay connected. That's going to connect you to our People Power program that was referenced earlier. When we think about the threats to come, again, they're going to be varied. They're going to be on different time horizons. They're going to transcend different issues like immigration, trans rights, things like that. But the one thing that we know is that there is room for volunteers, for activists. There is room for people in their communities to step up and raise their hand and say, I want to help with this. And there is room for that help to make a meaningful difference. Maybe that takes the form of rallies and marches and protests where we can stand up and show force and say that this is not okay. Maybe that takes the form of text messages and phone calls to neighbors, to elected officials, to, in a targeted strategic way, continue to lift up our voices. And maybe that takes the form of things like trained volunteers who can be deployed to some of these worst case scenarios that are unfortunately very real that people have described, like mass deportations and things like that. We want to be able to plug in what we know is a vast and diverse and unique and beautiful community of activists into the very specific and urgent needs that exist. And as Anthony and Deirdre and Cecillia and everyone have talked about, we have a nationwide network of affiliates that allow us to do things like advocate for something at the federal level. And if that advocacy is successful, great. And if it's not, and it has downstream impacts that impact the local level, we can work hand in hand with our affiliates to make sure that there's immediate action taken so that there's no beat missed or anything like that along the way. So we really feel like this is a moment for the ACLU and a moment for folks who want to step up to come to the ACLU. If you go to aclu.org/47 and you fill out that form, do you want to be a volunteer? That will make you a part of the People Power community, and then we can reach out to you. We can start talking to you. We have our next volunteer action meeting next week, next Wednesday. So we have these things regularly, and we look forward to working with everyone and figuring out how best to take advantage of your time and your skills. If you have a ton of time, we want to work with you. If you don't have time till June, we still want to work with you. So go there now and fill it out, and looking forward to being in this fight with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John. We'll take it. Whatever time you got, we will take it. We'll take advantage of it. I have to lift up again aclu.org/47 because the way my phone has been blowing up with folks asking for ways to get involved, ways to volunteer. Here it is, y'all. John just gave it to you. That is how you can get involved. And I want to underscore that we cannot carry out any of this essential work without everybody who is here watching. This ACLU community is so strong. Millions of card-carrying members, supporters, activists, volunteers throughout the country. Your engagement and support provide us with the resources that we need to stay strong in the fight and be able to act quickly whenever the need arises. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for getting involved. Thank you for volunteering. I want to give a special shout out to our Guardians of Liberty who support the ACLU with a monthly gift. We are prepared today because of your steadfast support and your commitment. If you're tuning in and you're not a monthly donor yet, I hope that you will consider becoming one. It is the most powerful thing you can do to protect and advance civil liberties now and in the coming months and years ahead. So please go to aclu.org/go monthly to start a monthly gift today. Y'all, he's got to get past us first. And one of the ways that we, the people, can put up a firewall for freedom is with the Guardians of Liberty. So you all, before we close out today, because we are coming to the end of our time, I got to bring back my friend Anthony for a few final thoughts. Anthony, you promised the people that we have a plan, and we very clearly do. So is there anything else you want to lift up?
So I'm smiling even more broadly because I just listened to our fantastic colleagues lay out elements of our plan, and we have more than we could cover on the YouTube channel today. But I'll say this. These 5 people that you've just seen are amazing. There are 2,200 others like them. It's Donald Trump's biggest nightmare. They're in every state. They are indefatigable. They don't take no for an answer. And so I am just, this is why I can sleep well. It's because of the colleagues we've got and because of the supporters and the members who are going to join us in this struggle. And, you know, I just want to say this, AJ, as I close out, is like, we don't do this because it's easy. And we don't do this work because success is assured. We do this because we must, because it's right, because we must stand up for undocumented immigrants, because we must stand up for people who want to terminate an unwanted pregnancy, because we must stand up for that transgender kid who's getting bullied in their classroom, because we must stand up for people who want to speak their mind and dissent and debate from where the government's going. And so we're clear-eyed that it's not going to be easy, and we know we're not going to succeed. We're also clear-eyed that we have no choice. And I think about the fact that these positions might not be popular in MAGA world. I know we're on the right path, and I know ours is a just cause. And so I'm just looking forward to keeping on, and having as many people join us so that this little stream becomes a mighty river into the deep blue ocean of social justice. So just made that up on the fly.
I like it.
I'm not sure I'm going to get bars for that, whatever bars means, but that's how I was feeling at the moment. And I'm deeply grateful to you, AJ, for anchoring us for this effort.
We'll work on your bars, we'll work on the flow, but you're very poetic, Anthony. We are 2,200 strong at the ACLU, plus the millions of you all. Anthony, thank you. I also want to thank Cecillia and Deirdre and John. You all have heard me say this so many times. ACLU is not new to this. We are true to this, but we're also made for this. So on behalf of Anthony, our speakers, everyone at the ACLU, thank you all for joining the town hall. This activism Especially during this time, it is a calling to create a more perfect union for our communities, for our families, for those who are here today and those who are yet to come. And I want to lift up something that I turn to often, that Cecillia reminds us of, and it's that we are a part of a generational struggle, a legacy that we have been entrusted to uphold and protect and expand. And we have to remember that we are not the first to do this, that we are continuing the work of our ancestors and all of those who dreamed bigger and brighter and wilder. And that is going to be even more important to remember in the days and the months and the years to come. So we must continue to do this critical work. It is obviously needed now more than ever. So whatever comes, you all, they got to get past us first. So stay safe, stay engaged, stay committed to raising your voices and keeping on. We are in this together, for us now, for those who came before, and for all who come after. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being in the fight, and take good care.